Hey guys, Melvin here. Welcome to the attic. We're going to be reading a story from the RPG Horror Stories subreddit. This one was posted by user SAV Mikado. It's about a player who takes on the mantle of Catgirl and then showcases some seriously antisocial and even troubling that guy behavior. By the way, if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload new videos. Without further ado, let's check it out. Very slight TW for sexual harassment. Also spoilers for the Krenko's Way adventure from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. When the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica first came out, I was ecstatic. Ravnica is one of my favorite settings in Magic the Gathering, and I was eager to try the setting in a campaign. I had never played 5e at this point, but I had played a few other tabletops and was generally familiar with the rules through watching Critical Role and Dark and Dicey. I just needed to find a few players. My best friend came in clutch and managed to find me a few mutual friends who wanted to join the campaign. One player, the only girl in the bunch, wants to know if she can be a Catgirl. The Simic Guild of Ravnica creates hybrids. While they usually are focused on aquatic creatures or reptiles for the sake of potential future plot hooks, I was open to the idea of a cat hybrid. I completely trusted this player as well, so I had no reason to believe that her Catgirl would be problematic. So, she starts working on a Simic Catgirl Ranger. She eventually decided that she wanted to try out the Vidalcan race and scrapped her original character concept for a Vidalcan monk. Upon hearing this, one of my other players decided he wanted to play a Catgirl. I had immediate reservations about this, but he had been there when I originally okayed the idea, and I didn't want to establish a trend of double standards. So, he rolls up a Celestia half-elven druid, Catgirl, with a very hand-waved excuse for why she was hybridized. I didn't like the idea of a hybrid character not from Simic, especially since Celestia and Simic don't necessarily get along. But he was adamant. I should have been a little firmer, but I was scared of losing players since we had a small group already. Session 1 comes around. I've decided to run the Krenko's Way adventure straight from the book, as this is my first time DMing. Within 10 minutes, the party has gone to a tavern and started a bar fight. During the fight, Catgirl sneaks out of the tavern, obviously planning something, though I didn't know what yet. He ends up ritual casting Speak with Animals to ask any nearby cats about the quest giver. They were close enough to where the quest giver lives, and I had further plans for this NPC, so I figured it was reasonable to let him get some information this way. Following the quest line, they end up at another tavern with a lead. They're trying to track down an escaped criminal, and a weapon dealer who's had suspected dealings with said criminal typically drinks at this bar. While waiting for her to arrive, Catgirl ritual casts Speak with Animals again. He plans on asking for intel about the weapons dealer. Quickly noticing a forming trend, I remark that finding a cat in this seedy part of town might be difficult. He begins to get upset and insists that cats would be all over the place, since Ravnica is a busy city. After a little debating, we manage to compromise on an investigation check, which he passes. As he asks his chosen cat for any relevant info, I make a wisdom roll for the cat. Cat low rolls, so I tell him that the cat hasn't seen anything relevant. He gets upset, claiming that cats see everything. One of the other players chimes in that cats would probably have better things to do than make a mental note of every person entering a specific tavern. The dealer does arrive at the tavern. I describe her as an attractive 20-something with neon pink hair. Face of the party tries to buy her a drink to loosen her up. He low rolls charisma, and she gives him a thanks but no thanks, big guy brush off. Catgirl then tries flirting with her and buying her a drink. Also low rolls charisma, but insists he should pass the check since the dealer is probably into girls. At this point, the NPC is very off-put and decides to leave. Catgirl won't have it and tries several times to stop her from leaving. After outrunning Catgirl's advances, the dealer manages to slip away into the night. Out of character, Catgirl seems very upset that he wasn't allowed to buy her a drink, insisting that he didn't mean it to be flirtatious. Though he did also take the opportunity at this point to establish that his character is a lesbian and doesn't wear shoes. He then sprints off into the night looking for the dealer. He decides to use a spell slot to cast Speak with Animals to ask a cat where she went. This time he doesn't pass the investigation check, but to avoid another argument about how prevalent cats should be in this part of town, I send him a very unhelpful cat. Unable to find the dealer due to inadequate perception and investigation checks, he gives up and decides to hire an assassin to hunt her down and kill her. He used the background tables in the Guildmaster's Guide to roll a generated background, and ended up with a contact in the Demir, a guild of sneaky types and assassins. He called in that contact and sent him after the dealer. We did this secretly through text messages so the rest of the group wouldn't know. I didn't want to allow this, but hoped that if he managed to get their lead killed, failing the quest might be the slap on the wrist he needed to cut the crap. Next in-game day, the group hunts down her home by interrogating the right people. They are met there by the hired assassin, who draws suspicion from the rest of the group. Catgirl says he's a friend of hers, which does little to calm the others. But they agree to go along with it. They pick the lock and break into the house. As soon as they find the weapon dealer, Catgirl immediately tries to attack her. During the ensuing combat, the rest of the party manage to kill the assassin, restrain Catgirl, and convince weapon dealer they mean her no harm. Dealer gives them the info they wanted in exchange for saving her life, which made Catgirl declare that he saved the day for the rest of the party. Out of character, everyone begins to press Catgirl for an answer as to why he tried to kill their only lead. He defends his actions by saying that since their conversation at the bar went poorly, he didn't want her passing off information about the party to the criminal they were hunting. Rest of the party accuse him of acting like an incel who was just mad that she rejected his advances. He insists he never meant to flirt with her, but we all agree to drop it and move on. Next session, we have a few absentees. So we agree to do a non-canon one-shot based on the then upcoming War of the Spark magic set. They're mysteriously transported into the future. I describe that they're on a few tall buildings, about 50 stories, overlooking the ruination of their homeland. After barely letting the quest giver finish the plot hook, Catgirl declares he's jumping off the roof. I give him a very confused look and several "Are you sures?" He confidently replies, "Yes, I'm a cat, so I always land on my feet." He looks shocked as I begin to furiously roll d6s to determine fall damage. He asks why I'm rolling so much damage, and I remind him that the building was 50 stories tall. He looks upset and says that I never told him that. All the other players immediately tell him that I made the building's height very clear from the start. He reluctantly accepts his fate and burns a few spell slots healing himself once the rest of the party stabilize him. The rest of the one-shot goes smoothly, except for a few times he refused to take a plot hook because it would have been out of character for him, which I suppose is fair enough. The campaign went on temporary hiatus due to university exams. During this time, it's been brought to my attention that Catgirl has been getting handsy with the girl in our group. Apparently, when the party was getting some after-session drinks, myself being absent since I don't drink, he'd been crossing a few too many physical boundaries. His excuse was that he was drunk and shouldn't be held accountable for his actions, which, pardon my French, is a load of troll dung. With that knowledge, I called the campaign off. We didn't have enough players to continue without him, but there was not a chance I was going to play another session with him at the table. Now, if you're a DM and one of the players decides to pick up another player's discarded Catgirl concept, the alarm bells should start going off. That initial idea of using stray cats to gather information actually sounded pretty cool, and it was cool the one time they used it, but the over-reliance on that or any one idea will just inevitably feel tired. It's like in any other story. Having a character that reuses one very specific ability over and over will lose its flavor without novel approaches or permutations. Instead, accessing other concepts with the available abilities makes for a much more enriching experience, both for that player and the group. Where the flags start raising next is when our Catgirl actively argues with the DM about this, trying to bludgeon the game in a direction that empowers them the most. This should clue you in that this player isn't really thinking about anyone else in the party. Now, we can mainly chalk this up to some awkwardness or immaturity on the player's part, but I sure wasn't ready for that creepy escalation when Catgirl interacted with that dealer NPC. First, they try flirting, and when that doesn't go well, call on a blood feud, actively trying to get that NPC killed for daring not be interested in them. It's a yikes. Simply a yikes. For the final escalation, that part at the end about Catgirl's player getting handsy with the only female player is a whole other level. Needless to say, boundaries are pretty important with interpersonal relationships, and that particular anecdote is a line that crosses acting really cringe in D&D. So, yeah, oof. Alright everyone, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining me here in the attic, and take care of yourselves out there. This is Melvin, in the attic, signing out.